guest is an NDE, near-death experience survivor, quantum healer, and zero-point healing practitioner. At a very young age, he was struck by a motor vehicle, and to this event bioelectrically connected him to the quantum field. During his NDE, he experienced sitting with a being compromised solely of light. Let's welcome today's guest, Stephen Noack. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've had various discussions, and I guess each time yourself and others included who have had near-death experiences, I guess there's a cyclical feeling of going back again to what happened, but what new revelations, I guess, play into the journey or this path that you've experienced. And
it's pretty wild to when I realized I was my future self guiding my past self in the present moment.
That's so interesting. And so as you travel this path, many of the people might have heard your story because you've had a lot of interviews, you've given a lot of interviews on your near-death experience. But for those who haven't heard the two near-death experiences that you experienced, maybe you can just share how it started and at what age and how you had those revelations.
Sure. So I was 4 years old. I was hit by a car on a big wheel. I drove out between two parked cars into the road. And that's when a car basically ran me over. I went entirely underneath the car. And the woman, unfortunately, at the time was drinking, so she didn't know she even hit me. And I was so small. So she kept going. People waved her down, probably about 15 to 20 feet after I was under the car. What I remember is like a blur. And I'll say a lot of this happened to me. And growing up, and I'll get to that later, but growing up, I kind of thought it was just a memory. Okay, this just happened, and I kind of lived my life. So I see all these things, and the very first thing I experience is a blur, and I experienced the scene kind of opening like a movie, um, and then closing again. And in between the opening and closing, I'm above myself, and I'm looking at myself, and I see my eyes roll in the back of my head. But for some reason, I had no clothes on. I was naked. I don't know what that meant. But I'm watching myself, and my eyes roll in the back of my head. And as the scene fades again, the next opening is sitting. And I know I'm sitting with someone. I'm leaning on them. I feel them. But I'm like, what happened? So I'm leaning with my head down to the side. As I open my eyes, I see long hair almost touching the ground. And it's like silvery, like luminescent almost. And I see the bottom of what somebody would call a robe. And as I turn to ask what I'm thinking is a person, what happened, it's a hooded figure that has no face. They only have light where their face should be. And I just kind of stare for a second. I don't know how long time was, but I'm just staring. And then I ask them what happened. And they said, Stephen, put your head down. Everything's going to be all right. And I put my head down kind of on this being's chest, and I'm staring at their face, and the light's starting to pull at me. I'm starting to feel like I'm getting lifted into it. And then the scene kind of changes to these flowers, to these meadows, to this nature scene. And the colors it was more real than 3D reality, than being here. That's all I can say. It was more vibrant, more alive. So I noticed the colors and the flowers were like their own beings, and they were like dancing and just rhythmically kind of. And it was the most beautiful, thing I ever saw. And I noticed these colors were their own consciousness, like they had own free will. So they're kind of moving, looking at the flowers, and it's like meadow upon meadow upon meadow. And I notice off to my left, there's a couple figures, and it's like an elderly man and a child, and they're kind of playing. And they seemed so far away, but they also seemed close at the same time. So they're playing, and this child laughs, and this energy just goes floating through the landscape and touches me directly in the center. And it was like I instantly got a download, and I knew everything came from this place. Everything would return to it. That pain It wasn't that it didn't exist there. It couldn't even vibrate high enough to form function. And I just instantly got all this information that everything was one. I wanted to go there. This incredible opening of love that I was experiencing. And they said, it's not your time. And then that's when the scene just kind of changed. Like somebody pulled a curtain to the side, and it's almost like a night sky, but without stars, not quite black, but a night sky. And I see lines going up and down, and they explain this is the quantum field. Humanity experiences its reality in relationship with this field, with their thought, their emotions, and a circuit that passes back through them. And this is their perception of reality based on their thoughts and their emotions. So next, they brought me to where I'm kind of observing like almost a wagon wheel or a medicine wheel structure. And in the center, there's like a beam of light. And they explain when you come into this incarnation, your love. You spend your energy to have an experience on a spiritual and emotional level. And they showed kind of cords going out to this screen that seemed to be all the way around me. And I understood that this would be the screen that I would have a life review in, if you will. So I could see small like boxes, and they seemed to contain data and information. And I was able to discern some of that by just, obviously thinking we're not speaking. And all this is happening at Ford. I'm witnessing it. I have no idea what it means. I won't know what it means until many years later. So I'm witnessing this energy or data in these little tiny TV screens up in this screen all the way around me, like a field was around me, and these cords going out. And they explained that we can make heaven within us now by bringing our Heavenly Father and our Divine Mother together, and they create a son. And then next, I saw a Trinity, and they were explaining to me this is how to recall all of this energy back after having it spent, because we overspend and we get linear and we feel disconnected and we lose our identity. In other words, we've traded our identity to the world where identity has already been given. So we had an experience, and it was almost like they were explaining how to do a life review while I was alive.
Wow.
And that's what it felt like. So the next, I see a triangle, and they begin explaining this is Heavenly Father, this is Divine Mother, make them one, and they have a son. And I understood this as they were telling me to be a circuit that I wanted to connect to be two energies that were a part of me, my higher self, lower self, and that also represented a system of duality where I would be pushed and pulled through my trauma, pushed and pulled through my experiences rather than having free will or having some say by bringing this sacred union into being. So some of that was figured out later, but I was told this is a circuit. So I saw the triangle, the Trinity. This is a circuit, spending our energy. And then they explained that each person has a restore file like a computer. It's their divine blueprint. It's the promise of Christ. And I saw something in a distance, and I'll tell you, it looked like a key card like with motherboard circuits on it.
Wow.
This is the image of creator you were made in. And the key is you need to believe you are this and unsubscribe all these cords and these tangled wires that are going out into the world seeking identity where it can't be given. I understood that the world didn't have the capacity to identify us, that it had already been done, and that I was already love, having an experience. So that this was a restorative redemption, like a restore file to clean the system of data and other things that I was experiencing. So that kind of closed the triangle. And then I remember waking up, and I knew something had happened, but I didn't quite know what. Like I could feel something had happened, but it's like trying to remember what you ate 3 weeks ago on a Wednesday for lunch.
Right.
It was there, but I couldn't quite recall it. And I was always sensitive, always different thoughts, different feelings than the consensus around me. I didn't realize how much the NDE played into my personality. Um, so I got older, started going through life, um, went through a lot of dark periods. And I actually questioned sometimes, if there is a creator, he doesn't like me because I had this experience at 4 and now I'm going through all this stuff. But
Right.
it was imperative and indicative that I got that education, um, indicative of what I was going to teach others eventually, was to how to undo that bondage of these distortions. So 25 years later, I'm working at GameStop as a store manager. I'm not sure if I can say that. I'm working at a video game store as a store manager, and I'm starting to experience anomalies after I went to have a surgery. And what happened during the surgery, I was starting to feel anxious. By this time, I was God, I was self-loathing. I hated myself. I was addicted to prescription painkillers. I had been through so many car accidents. I got run over, played sports, flipped the car over 5 times, a few other accidents, crashed a motorcycle. So I was a hurting unit. I was full of pain, physically and emotionally. Um, so I'm laying there having surgery, about to have surgery actually on my elbow, when this voice comes in, because I'm starting to feel panicked. I want to get up and I want to leave. I'm starting to not feel very uncomfortable. Starting to feel very uncomfortable. And the voice comes in and says, Steven, put your head down. Everything's going to be all right. And it was like I could literally feel like I was swallowed by this warm love energy from my feet all the way around my head, all the way down. I mean, it was like thick. You could feel it. And it was warm and it was love. And I was sitting up at this point and it literally just sat me back down. And then had the surgery. Uh, Probably about a week later, I started to sense energies. I knew they were there. I knew something was there. I didn't know how I knew, but I knew. I started to hear people's thoughts at my job, and I would play games with it. I'd practice it. Customer would come up, buy something, because I was a skeptic. I'm like, what's happening to me? Am I going crazy? So customer would come up, they'd buy something, and I'd ask them in my mind, do you want a bag? And then I would ask them out loud and I'd see if it would match. And it was matching. This turned into like I would start to feel their hunger. And it was really weird, but I many times would eat lunch, be totally full. A customer would come in and I'd be gut wrenchingly hungry. Eventually, I asked a couple of them who turned around and walked right out. Like maybe I freaked them out. A couple of them chuckled and said, yeah. But for some reason, we were trading in an enormous amount of energy. And then I was having bursts of laughter, crying that I couldn't really control, coupled with balls of light in my room. Ball of light would just show up in my room, and I'd be like, "There's no lamp over there." As I'm waking up, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm awake. I'm testing myself. I'm going through all the motions of, am I crazy?" Before I get to the conclusion that there's something going on. So, balls of light, then the Arcturians, um, these high density beings who we could say were kind of angelic arrived like in my room. I could feel the whole pressure of the room shift and I can hear them speaking to me. And they said they're from the Galactic Federation and that I was a part of some divine council here to help humanity with its evolution and ascension, and that I was a biological machine, that I was the energy and not the body. And they were teaching me to remember. And so at this time, I'm like, yeah, whatever, go away. Because I'm starting to think I'm crazy. All these other things are happening. So they leave. I look up some of the information and it turns out, okay, there's stuff to this. Um, then I start to notice apparitions like walking around me, just energies. Some were smoky, some were a little darker. Um, at first, it was just a small bit of energy, and then it got to be like a full silhouette. At first, I thought I was haunted. I couldn't like shut it off. I couldn't shut off seeing it. Eventually, this turned into me speaking to it because I thought I was haunted, like get out of here, et cetera, et cetera. They started to speak back, as crazy as it sounds. But there was about 2 weeks I couldn't go to bed, where the side of my head was spasming, which is said to be the spiritual side, the temporal lobe, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so it was spasming, and these energies were saying nasty things, and a lot of it wasn't nice. Eventually, I picked, like, you're a piece of crap. You're not going to be anything in your life. We're going to take you to hell. You're never going to get anywhere. Eventually, I figured out that this wasn't happening to me, whether it was through a download of information and guidance, which a lot of it came, that it was being transmitted through me, that I had the ability to tune my thoughts, to tune my emotions, and to move to a different frequency. That a lot of this was distortion and interference, that it wasn't some evil spirit sent to get me. You know what I mean? That it was quantum, and I was getting a view back into this medicine wheel where I'd spent my energy, and I created energies on the end of that, or anchors, to have relationships with people, places, and things, but that it was easily corrected. And that a lot of it led to my emotional instability as well as my physical pain.
Yeah.
So I go through a process of really dedicating myself to figuring out how to change my thoughts about myself, about the world, about how I viewed this. I'm starting to tune to a different station, if you will. During this time, weeks or months apart, I would have these dreams where I'm being brought on a ship, and and I have no hair. I'm wearing a white suit. The ships are all white on the inside and very smooth surfaces, but different areas in each dream. And every time I would wake up sweating and sweat, I mean, covered in sweat. Um, that was like, I guess, the extraterrestrial aspect of it. Eventually, they did show up again in my room and started speaking more about purifying my lower consciousness, rewiring my nervous system, and teaching me how to do those things. So all of this, I'm trying to go to my job and trying to function. It led me to start going to churches. I tried to talk to everybody I could find of creator, because I knew it had something to do with it. Because I was starting to feel the same feeling I felt when I was 4, when I touched that place. And I was starting to understand that creator was a presence within me that I could leave or I could go back into. And I was starting to find this compass based on the information that I was feeding my system. And this was revealing the things they were telling me, like the subconscious being like a hard drive, the waking consciousness being like an operating system, but also how to make the two work together rather than having conflicting drives through the data that I had downloaded in my experience that I was never able to express or discharge. So they were showing me different formats of that and the after effects. I wound up having to leave my job, go do something else that was not with the public. There was a day during that job where I went to go have lunch. I went to the gas station, and I remember that. I'll never forget this. This kid was standing with his father, and he didn't have anything in his hands. He's just standing there. He said, "Can I get this peanut butter cup?" And he goes and he gets it. There you go, Reese's. Got your advertisement there. Gets his peanut butter cup and turns around to his father. And he says, "Yeah." He gets back in line. Then he does the same exact thing, empty-handed. Goes through the same motions, asks them the same way. The cashier's doing. I'm like, what the heck just happened? I went back to my car and thinking about it. Okay, that was weird, but moving on. And this is coupled with all the other things I'm experiencing as well. That's why it's weird to me. So after this experience in the gas station, I go out to my car and I start the car, which is already on the radio. And they're talking to a woman that won a radio contest. And they're giving the answer. They're laughing about it. All of a sudden, like somebody hit a switch, the phone is ringing on the radio, and it's the woman, and they're asking her the question, and I can't understand it because I just heard the answer and they were just talking about it. And that's when I was like, something seriously wrong. And I started to experience like sweating and turning red, and then led to the I am experience. where I was driving home in my car. Um, I'm driving home in my car, beating myself up, all the things I had done wrong, not being the man I should be, et cetera, et cetera. At the time, I'm trying to really shut out this interference. I'm really trying to gain a handle on my sanity because I'm being a father. I'm a manager at a store. Um, so I tell the voice, go away. And it keeps telling me all these people that love me and all this beautiful stuff. And I'm starting to, okay, this is different. This sounds different. This feels different. Um, who are you? And the voice says, I am. Now, it's important to note to people I was never religious, never went to church, never followed anything. The voice says, I am. And my response, I am who? And the voice says, I am. Clear as day. I say again, yeah, I am who? And on the third, I am, it was like every single emotion I ever had in my life, coupled with every memory, came shooting up inside me. I started to cry like a baby. The hardest I ever cried in my life was that day. And it was like I felt them all at the same time, but separately. And it was like somebody flipped the reel on rewind or something. And, that was the I am experience. And since then, through the guidance, through the work I had done on myself, I realized I was making past, present, future one, that I was creating a singularity within me through the Christ, and that by the fundamental properties of quantum physics, this was considered a singularity between the positive and negative. And they were teaching me how to break the bondage, how to break out of the circuit of duality that pushed and pulled me, and to have free will. But I had to become the programmer of my experience. So that was the I am experience. Left the job. Um, I don't know if you want to break in at all or ask any
Yeah. I'm
questions.
gonna ask you a question now, and then yeah. What I wanted to say was I find it so interesting because when you express this story, I think of all the people throughout probably the years prior to people being able to express themselves on YouTube or on through videos who've had probably near death experiences and didn't have the opportunity or the insight to understand what was going on at that moment and how many people probably turned away from the experience that you turned towards. So I want to ask you what was the driving force to force you to go towards it as opposed to going away from it?
I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and the memories really. I tried to share them when they started to come back around 10 or 11, 12, and I started to realize something had happened. But I noticed it wasn't a good thing to share it. So the memories continued to grow, but I kept it to myself. And eventually, what led it to come out was that it became so big I couldn't hold it inside anymore. It was making me crazy. It was making me unhealthy. I had to share my story, and that's what led me to healing myself, was to share that and the information that was being given to me. And it was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I realized I exhausted all these sources of love where I was searching for a filling outside of me, that I had to start going within me, retreated into nature. I coupled that with the practices that they were teaching me, to connecting to the Trinity as I understood it. And it led me to research too, the Trinity in other ways, ancient stuff that was even before, how Jesus was teaching us. So I started to see him as a messenger that was showing me how to perform something and do something on myself. But it was really being sick and tired of the self and of the pain. And I realized through these beings coming back, sitting outside in my yard, being lifted out of my chair, having all my pain melt away. It was like I was being lifted out of my body and spoken to by these galactic beings, that I could make heaven and earth one now. I realized I could get into that space of no pain. I just had to get there. I had to get my mind and my body to catch up to what I already was.
Yeah.
It was a lack of identity, really. I'd given the world power to dump into my system these false programs.
How long did it take
So it
for,
was love. It was all about love. That's
yeah.
our identity.
Well, I have two questions I guess, combined together. I guess, how long did it take you
Mm.
to assimilate it to a place where you said, okay, now the past is behind me now, and now I'm moving forward, and here's the point where I will now take ownership and heed the advice I heard and use it to my advantage. So I guess let's go with that one.
Ah, I'd say it was a good 7 years before I really started to get my butt in gear of these experiences and going through these stages of witnessing something beyond the bounds of my understanding, but not feeling comfortable enough to share it and pulling myself back to the normal reality and fitting into a box rather than being authentic me and understanding people will either love me or not love me. It's not the end of the world. It's all source and it's all creator. But yeah, it was a good, probably 7 years. Um, but we're always growing, to that next level. And that's what it is. There was never a war between myself and the world, myself and these people, myself and the long line of traffic. It was between whatever energy kept me from my identity that would come up and separate me from love. And as long as I embodied that, my timeline was already set. Everybody's timelines are already set. It's a matter of what we're embodying. So that leaves the formula: embody the highest energy I can, live that timeline. Body lower, I'm going to experience the other one.
It's interesting you speak about Christ and the Galactic Federation or the galactic beings in combination. And I might have mentioned this to you in the past, or I might have spoken about this. I have a shaman friend who's in his mid 80s who had a meeting in the Amazon and had seen a galactic ship, a mothership, land in the Amazon, had made contact, and Jesus stepped off the ship itself. And so, as we look at Jesus as a symbolic figure of religion, it's obviously also a symbolic figure of what lies beyond our consciousness in a religious sense, but more in an energetic sense, as you describe. And so it's interesting because you mentioned is that you didn't have really a strong tie to religion, but yet Jesus, the Christ, came through. And so how do you assimilate both of those energies together, knowing you see Jesus on the cross as a figure we see on this earthly plane, and galactic beings who we don't see, with our, in most cases, although people like yourself had these experiences. So maybe you could tie the two together and what your interpretation of it was.
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, death is not the end. So when we're focused on our body, when we're more resonant with that being our existence, we're going to resonate with that aspect of the message. And for me, it became what he showed me how to do. And he was the first one to bring that message fully into the physical world. Complete it. I completed this trip. You can do it too. And I firmly believed that and felt that in my heart and soul that I can follow this. This is something I'm supposed to be doing, not just saying, hey, I believe in this, certain parts, and skipping other parts. I'm supposed to be sacrificing my scapegoat. In other words, where I dump all my crap, my subconscious mind, that lower part of me. I'm supposed to be making that sacrifice. But I also saw it as data maintenance. I understood that I'm creating cellular memory within my body, that I'm working to also create polarity, and in the neuroscience terms, what's known as action potential, to discharge cellular memory when I get my nervous system up to a certain state by making positive and negative one. Divine feminine, masculine, positive and negative is really not a good connotation, but divine feminine, divine masculine, that message was there for me. Thought and breath, father and mother. And there were just so many things that made sense to creating that sun. And what Jesus showed me how to do was create a literal sun within me, a singularity. And yeah, it's a circuit. When I'm here, I'm fully present, I'm full, I'm loved, I already am, but I'm human. They'll try to pull me out to the right, into the past with either shame, guilt, or regret, pull me into the future with fear, worry, or anxiety, and I rubber band myself back because I keep my mind and heart coherence pretty synced up. So I'm always speaking to my heart. I'm always doing, some programming. But yeah, how making him one is he became the messenger that I knew I had to follow and made the sacrifice for me. So I didn't deviate from the message of he's my sacrifice, but there's certain parts in the Bible where the woman worships baby Jesus at the temple, and God says, careful, you don't worship this child, worship only God. So I understood some of the messages a bit deeper to be when Jesus says, listen, man, I'm just your brother. He's showing us how to do something because he loved us and he made the sacrifice to do it
Yeah, absolutely.
to
So
me.
yeah, so obviously the question most people ask is, why does a person experience a near death NDE or near death experience? What's the purpose of it? What does it serve? And from your example, you can see some of the ramifications, the positive things that took place. You know, albeit the struggles that initially took set, but I guess we have the opportunity in many cases to be a victim of circumstances where a person could, you know, roll up into a ball and say to themselves, look what happened to me, and continue on that path of not learning what was needed to be
Mm.
learned. So if what was the initial, um, I guess, communication you made about what happened and why it happened?
I believe the equation is to give us an anchor to kind of get to that level to where we can witness more of our identity and oneness. And that it's always going to lead back to our identity as love. Like, I can't speak for someone else's purpose. I can say for me, and I didn't share this earlier, but how I figured out that I had a healing gift or something was happening was a woman fell outside my store one day when I was working at the video game store. She hit the concrete. She was elderly. She was in pain. And I put my hand on her. And a couple seconds later, she looked at me and she said, I'm all warm and I don't have any pain. And it kind of freaked me out for a second. But I realized that it was something that was passing through me, that's passing through us all, because we're all prisms for this light of the creator. And for some reason, I had gotten moved into a certain space to where I could allow it, and that we can all allow it, and that we can all kind of reconnect. And I believe, the NDE maybe helps some share that message also and expand the consciousness and make others feel peace and love for their loved ones, for themselves. And I believe it brings them, closer to that healing as well, which ultimately always is going to lead to love. If we can understand the equation, it's all about the equation.
Yeah. So in
But
many
leading
cases,
them closer to that oneness, whether it's grief, loss, or something they need for themselves.
yeah, it appears from my interviewing people who've had near death experiences that the outcome is always a struggle, but always a positive outcome of assisting them in one's path and also others as well who are obviously in need of the things in the work you do. Speaking of quantum healing, which is one of the aspects of what you do, maybe you could just share with the audience a
It
little bit.
certainly brought depth. Yeah, it certainly gave me the depth. It was
And
once I
also,
was able to take this energy and do something with it and process it, then I could intuitively understand it. I couldn't process it down in my foot. I had to process it through my heart, which means I had to open my heart again. And I wasn't prepared to do that right away, being all the things I experienced. I know a lot of people probably aren't, but I started to understand that I was supposed to have a love story, but not with just this character, that character, with all of creation. And then that was my love story. And I started to share my things with Creator, and that helped me heal my heart.
yeah, maybe you could talk a little bit about the quantum healing and the work that you're doing now in terms of healing people.
Sure. Well, I work with clients from all over the world. I just got back the past fall from doing a speaking event as well as healings in North Carolina, where oddly enough, I ran into one of the guys speaking at the event that I wasn't even supposed to be speaking at. And he works with the government, so like UFO projects, things like that. And he was talking about the beings that came out of the craft that had a triangle on their chest, that talked about the Trinity, that talked about singularity. And I'm like, dang, I'm supposed to be here. So, sometimes I'll go out and do events like this summer. I should be in Phoenix for a conference and I'll do healing there. But a lot of it is local, or people come to me on Zoom, like from anywhere. And I use quantum entanglement because they already are love. We can entangle, I work with them through practices and things like that. We can entangle, and this can help shift their energy into a different frequency. This can help them release a lot of blockages. I've had people get rid of their glasses. One lady is like, I didn't even realize I didn't need my glasses anymore. Um, but it's giving them back their power in their identity of knowing that they're a sovereign being, their free will to have, some of that say in what they experience. So I'll work with them from distance or whether up close. They can contact me through trinityquantumhealth.com. I
Yeah.
also have a book coming out too, where I'm a co-author. That if people want to order it, it'll be on Amazon. I believe it's Near Death Institute, the book, Death. And you can also pre-order there too, neardeathinstitute.com.
How would you advise people to increase their charge, which is a
I would say right away, participate early morning. It doesn't have to be early, but when you wake up, participate in giving thanks to Creator, giving thanks to different things, to the trees, to the grass, to the birds, to the water, because you're going to build a signal and you're looking to build that thought to kind of break through some of the messiness that we hold in our gut sometimes, our emotions and things like that. Early in the morning, giving thanks, claiming and programming their identity to already be whole, to already be loved. And this keeps us with that feeling, and this keeps us less seeking of that through unhealthy connections, whether it's person, place, or things, or, stuff like that. So some programming in the morning, some breathing, because they want their thought to enter their breath. Then throughout the day, you want to understand that you're like a computer. You're going to process and store data all day long. So you want a system. Do I want to relate to this? Because as soon as I relate to it, it's going to go into my body. I'm going to download this as soon as I believe it. It's going to send the information down. So I want a process of not relating and recognizing any lower signals, any bad speak about my inner self and or things like that. I want to send to a different place. I don't want to just agree with it and allow it. So I want to say thank you to any lower speak, any lower feelings, but I no longer relate with you. I send you into my heart with gratitude and thanks. This is going to help us with neuroplasticity. It's going to help us rewire the brain on what signals that we're going to have running through as a pattern eventually. Mind heart coherence exercises. And then a real period of, at the end of the day, speaking to your body, speaking to any lower energy, any pain, any ailment, anything that's bothering you. Thank you for what you've taught me, but you're no longer welcome here. And I tell people when they speak to their body as they're breathing, after, praying to Creator, speak to your body. I tell them do it with a sense of knowing, do it with a sense of firmness. And I always tell people, I don't even need you to believe in something in particular. Just work with the feeling of belief itself. Compare this feeling of things you do know for certain, see how it feels in you, and then compare it to you claiming your identity as already whole or seeing yourself as love, and see if you can close that gap. Because it means there's a program in the way of that completing signal. So it's easy to complete when I think, do I know how to tie my shoes? Yeah, of course I do. Because nobody interrupted that. What got interrupted was our identity a bit through, childhood programming, things like that.
yeah, interesting for me because I I feel a connection myself to the galactic energies or the galactic connection within that exists. Um, I've had encounters where I've seen ships and dreamt of things communicating with me in some capacity, and as people say, going down the rabbit hole of information leads to a specific place, a well of things that are become exposed. When you're in that
Mm-hmm.
mindset or in your own meditation work, or as the work you just said that you had, when you come into beings or people doing healings, do you see their healing aspects in terms of galactic connection? When is there different types of beings or different types of energies that assist different types of people?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a wide range of things. Like, for instance, I had one woman yesterday who was just started up and speaking light language, is what they call it. She seemed to have a deeper galactic connection. And there's other times where I'll witness different types of beings. Some are blue, translucent like, some have robes at certain times. There's some that looked like lions. There was time I saw, and I'm not thinking anything. And I'm me being a skeptic. I'm waiting for a second vision. I'm not even shooting on the first vision. I'm like, whatever, let it pass. If it happens again, then I know there's something, more to this. So I'm working on the people and I see a mantis being. Looks like I'm like, whoa, what do we got? Trouble here? Because I have done removal and helped people with stuff like that. Though it's not my, favorite thing to do. I've done it. So I thought at first we had a problem, but they just went and worked on. There was like four of them, and I'm working on the person. And a lot of times I'll see purple kind of expanding as we're connecting, and we're really circuiting with the same energy. We're looking to get this person reconnected back online, like tech support.
Right.
So um, I see these beings come in, and three of them go on one side, three of them go on the other, and they just start doing their doctor looking things, and then they leave through this. I guess you could say it was like a portal or Stargate because there were stars. They just went through it and left. And I've seen different beings over the time. More or less, the translucent blue ones are the most like, or purplish,
Yeah.
as well as having memories myself of being on other planets, realizing as I'm having the lucid dream that I'm here, I'm aware.
Interesting. Do you think, like I had a healing with Steve last week, and it was very interesting and profound for me. You mentioned one aspect of a blue light, so or a violet type of light, and I saw the light coming through my third eye at one point. And in most cases, is it the client's guides allowing the person like yourself to do the energy, or is it people on your behalf working with you to then step into the energy of the client?
I found it just more or less their guides that
Okay.
are happy that, hey, the work's being done. The person decides to have the self-realization of, and that I am this person who's asking for the work. So it's like a union of energies in a
Right,
way.
right, right.
But most times I find it's them. uh Probably, I would say 15% me, not me, but my guides or my end, is it, and mostly getting them connected in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then once things kind of get rolling and we're breathing and we're working, then their guides are coming in. They're able to kind of access that space. It's almost like once we wire in a way.
Right.
I had a woman 2 days ago. She had a real bad sciatica, hip pain, back pain. We had 2 sessions. After the second session, she had a dream that it was three beings of light and myself that showed her sciatica and said it was connected to somewhere in some other galaxy or something. And she's like, I was aware. I knew this dream was real. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty wild. So even me, growing up pretty regular, I'm like, yeah, that's wild. I never know what to expect.
Interesting. All right. If again, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, on maybe you could just share the website again.
Sure. You can reach out to me through trinityquantumhealth.com. If you do email, just give me a little time to get back to you. That's all. Because I'm literally the only person that handles everything.
Okay.
It was a calling where, that woman fell. I felt like, that was the start of it because someone else got put in my path who I thought I might be able to help. Okay, I tried and I did. And then it worked out and everything snowballed over the years to here. But it was a lot of self work. Um, and that's the first and foremost, is always have that reflection of your thoughts.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to leave us with a message if you could regarding
Oh, I will say that you're heaven walking in a body, that you already are love. It's just a matter of having that realization and making them one now. We can experience heaven through the heart while we're here. It's just a matter of it being blocked. And we were programmed to think that's safety. But the real safety is to open that heart and find the right connections with it. Embrace your authenticity. Let the people who don't hold authentic emotions for you reveal themselves and wither away. Your pain will thank you for it. Your nervous system will thank you for it. Um, Most of all, remember that you already are love and connect to the feeling of already being.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you for joining me because I look at you as a lighthouse of inspiration. Through a person like yourself, having the experiences you've had, turning your childhood from pain into growth and into wisdom.
Yeah, we didn't even get into that.
Well, you can
But
talk a
yeah,
little.
I will say it was a lot of
Yeah,
yeah, it was a lot of trauma, but it was needed. I needed the education. Thank you.
yeah. So I want to thank you. A lot of people don't go up the road and have the courage to overcome and stand alone in one's path and be ridiculed or ostracized for having a belief. But it takes courage and it takes a lot of determination to do that, and you've done that, and you're an inspiration. So thank you.
Thanks. I'll also say the Christ thing. I'm not liked by New Agers, and I'm not liked by religious people. Because if you're a New Ager, you think I'm religious. If you're a religious person, you think I'm a New Ager. And I was told I had to stick to this message because of the way I was speaking it and because of how it's been spoken in the past. Not that my way is the only right way, but it does lead people to love. So that's why I couldn't ever change it. It always leads to that Christ within us.
Well, the interesting thing just on that note is it's funny because many people you think who are
Mm-hmm.
understanding of the things that one believes, you wind up finding that there's a polarity, complete different polarity to that opposite, and it's interesting because, yeah, that's a very good point. All right, Steve,
Absolutely. When you push on those constructs, yep.
yeah, it's more of the person's constructs than it is the reality. All right, thank you so much for joining me, and I guess we'll talk again in the
Thanks for
future.
having me.
All right, Steve.
Thank you, brother.
Let me just stop this for a sec. Hold on. Yeah, I stopped it. What was I going to say? I saw on your website that you do the Akashic. You have someone who does the Akashic records, right? You work with a woman who has that, or
Yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
yeah,
She's pretty good. I've gotten a lot of good reviews, and I wouldn't have put her on there if I didn't trust her.
yeah.
Really clean in the heart.
Yes, yes, I see that. So I'm looking. I'm looking to collaborate because I do that as well. So if you know anybody
Oh, okay, cool.
yeah, if you know anybody, or you know, you have somebody there. But all
Yeah,
right,
you want me to? I can send you her email if you want.
yeah, you can do that. Yeah, yeah, that'd be great.
Cool.
All right,
She's
Steve.
in Peru. She was actually just visiting here a couple months ago. We went to Gettysburg. That was pretty sweet, dude.
Oh my God.
We went to Gettysburg. Yeah.
To feel the soul, you felt. I can imagine the souls that are lurking around, the energy of that, especially at night. I heard.
Oh yeah.
Did you feel
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. They don't even let you on the battlefield anymore at night.
Is that right? You may get
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Possibly. I did hear gunshots a couple times.
Wow. It's so interesting
Yeah.
because I know I have a friend who's in Russia who unearths the bodies from the Russian soldiers who were killed during World War II. And he said at night you see that
Wow.
you see energies running around and you hear noises of people making groaning sounds still. So how's that's amazing.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's crazy. The strength of the imprint that must be left, or the pattern that just keeps repeating.
Yeah. Another thing I was going to ask you. I had a dream about red galactic ships that looked like pitchforks. There were about 30 of them flying overhead. I
Wow.
don't know if that exists or not, but it was a nighttime sky and they were coming overhead and I said, "Look up." And people were looking up and then they said, "What is that?" And I said, "I have no idea." So I've had
Wow.
that specific dream along with another ship calling my name from above, a woman in a ship. So I don't know what it is, but the red I
I
didn't
wonder
know.
if that was the same woman that put the thing in the center of your forehead there.
Yeah, she said, "Hi, Adam," and it's a ship going ahead with purple and red, purple and pink lights flowing above, and with two moons I saw, two moons and that ship,
Wow.
and yeah, and then
That's wild.
I had a vision about an alien, a ship. When I did my Akashic record reading yesterday, ships, rockets going off, and interference from an alien ship. So I don't know if that's
Hmm.
in the future.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I do know that they talked about a war with some galactic species where, some of them were impeding on free will, and the other ones, the Galactic Federation, more so are for the free will.
yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully
Basically siphoning off our quantum energy like batteries.
reptilian forces.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what the guy
They're harvesting the qubits. It's called qubits. It's like
qubits.
quantum information.
So that's the data that you're talking about, sort of.
Yeah.
That's being hijacked or distorted.
Yeah,
Interesting.
exactly. Through neural hijacking
So we
and
talk about it, but that
other
would be too
means.
that would be too deep maybe to talk about something like
That's
that.
so deep, dude. I think I did on one show, and I think somebody who was going to interview me for a podcast, she's like, "I don't think we can have you on."
No,
And
I'm
I was like,
interested
"You
in
might
that.
have saw the wrong podcast."
Yeah, maybe the next time we'll talk about something like that, as opposed to not only near that, but to take it a little further.
You could the title could be "Are We in a Spiritual War?" Because that's what
Okay.
everybody talks about. It's a
Uh,
spiritual war. Yeah.
well, I know that because the guy was taken on a ship, Hacho, and he told me that he was told that there's what the exact forces with COVID. You know how it was given to Putin, actually. The I forgot, the antidote was given to Putin. He was told.
Wow.
You can't tell you can't tell the public. I told so many people, and they said to me, Putin's this, Putin's that, and I had that feeling he is. But then I see it for what it is, because he said because America was putting too many uh, different virus centers near the Russian border, and that's why he was
Mm-hmm.
given this antidote or whatever, these
Yep.
facilities of destruction. Very deep. All right. Thanks for
Yep.
sharing, and we'll talk.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Steve.
I'll see.